All right, are we ready? Are we ready for part number 2 of our Unit 4 review? Let's get right on it and let's talk about the Columbian Exchange. Here you see it. All the stuff, all the animals, the plants, the crops, the everything that went back and forth between the old world and the new world. And again, this is part of the triangle trade. So, let's talk about the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange, of course, is going to lead to drastic demographic decline of the natives. A lot of Native Americans are going to die from disease. Again, where the hardest hit places, right? Mexico, Peru, right? Wherever the large civilizations are, that's where they're going to get hit the hardest. North America, where the population was more spread out, less concentrated, they're going to get hit, but not nearly as bad. The Taino of the Caribbean, they're probably hit the hardest, where most of them, if not pretty much all of them, are going to eventually die. So again, the Indians, why are they dying? Because they lack the domesticated animals and therefore the diseases that the animals would have brought, and therefore their immune system had zero resistance to old world nasty diseases like smallpox and measles and other nasty, nasty stuff. On the good side of the Columbian Exchange, we have the population growth. Right? All the stuff that came from Europe and Africa and Asia is going to make its way to the Americas, and the people in the Americas are going to combine it with potatoes and corn and sweet potatoes, and then you're going to have population growth over. So worldwide, the population is going to grow. In the Americas, the population is going to sharply decline and then rise up eventually by the 1700s. But the place that kind of like benefits the most probably be Europe, because they kind of get the best of everything and very little negative downside from the Columbian Exchange. Cash crops is going to be a big part of the Columbian Exchange, right? The discovery of American tobacco. Europeans and the Ottomans are going to fall in love with tobacco. They're going to want to consume it all the time. Mix that with sugar, right, which becomes even more in demand, and coffee, which is a brand new one. All these cash crops are going to be grown in plantations in the Americas, and they're going to be using slave labor. And whether we're looking at, haciendas, which is the Spanish plantations, or the ingenos, which are the Portuguese ones, or the encomiendas, which is the Spanish labor system, right? All of these are forced labor, and we're going to see that cash crops is going to dominate the economy and the exports out of the Americas, and they're going to be consumed by people in Europe and in the Middle East. We mentioned this before. All these animals coming into the Americas is going to dramatically change the Americas. So you have horses and pigs and cows and chickens and horses and more horses, right? And these horses eventually they're going to be adopted by some Native American tribes, right? Up in the Great Plains, they're going to use these horses. But in the rest of the world, in the rest of the Americas, these animals are going to lead to, again, more food production and therefore more population growth. And here we see some of these horses. Look at this pig. He looks delicious, but let's keep going. New World is going to be negatively impacted, right? Because besides the fact they have all these people dying from disease, animals and plant species in the Americas are going to die. They're going to be overrun. They're going to be replaced. They're going to be destroyed with the arrival of these foreign species. We also see that there's going to be a lot of soil damage or soil degradation because the plantation owners are going to keep using this or keep growing the same crop over and over year after year, whether it's tobacco or cotton or sugar. And this will result in soil degradation and other problems. We also see deforestation take place, right? Where they're going to cut down tons and tons of forests to make room for, of course, plantations, but also the construction of new cities, right, in the Americas, inhabited by Europeans and their descendants and other settlers, right, and their slaves. So here we see some of the examples of deforestation and soil degradation. With the arrival of all these people, of course, we're going to see the establishment of religions and how religions are going to change over time, because that's what religions do. So, for example, Islam is going to change during this time period. We see that the divisions between the Sunni and the Shia are going to grow bigger and bigger, right? The difference is going to grow stronger. And we see this in the violence in the war that it takes place between the Ottomans and the Safavids, right? So Shia and Sunni Islam are going to split from one another and constantly be at war with one another. We see that when Islam continues to spread throughout sub-Saharan Africa, it will continue to become synchronized, right? Sub-Saharan Africans aren't going to fully adopt the traditional conservative version of Islam. They're going to modify it. So there is no veiling, there is no social restrictions on women, right? And they're going to keep their ancestral veneration to some extent. We see that when Islam continues to grow in popularity in India, the same thing is going to happen, where we see people like the Sufis are going to, try to, teach or convert people by allowing them to keep some of their traditions. So Islam is also going to be modified and synchronized in India. And in fact, we have people like Akbar, the Mughal ruler, who creates new religions to try a new religion to try to kind of bridge that gap between Islam and Hinduism. And eventually that leads to a brand new religion called Sikhism. So we see the evolution of Islam during this time period. It divides and it spreads and it expands and it synchronizes and it mixes and it blends, as does Christianity. Christianity is also going to do the same exact thing. It's going to split up. Right, the Protestant Reformation, led by Martin Luther, complaining about the selling of indulgences with the Pope and the Church, that is going to break up the Christian religion. Right, in Western Europe, we're going to see the creations of a whole bunch of new, different Protestant divisions, Lutherans and Calvinists and Anglicans. Oh my, they're all over the place. And of course, that leads to violence, just like the Safavids and the Sufis were fighting. The Protestants and the Catholics are going to fight as well. All right, but in Europe and the Middle East. We also see the increasing expansion of Christianity, especially Catholicism, when it's taken on their personal mission. The Jesuits, right, decide that they're going to be the ones responsible for spreading the faith, right, doing it on the behalf of the Pope, and they're going to be part of that Counter-Reformation, right, increase education, increase literacy, and convert a whole bunch of people. Right? And the Jesuits are going to convert people in the Americas and in Africa and in Asia and in China and Japan. They're going to go everywhere to convert. So Christianity will continue to expand and to continue to increase in popularity, but it will change, right? And it will be broken up even more and more. And they will see the guy, Martin Luther. Look at this handsome guy. All right. Buddhism, we haven't really talked about Buddhism. Just know that Buddhism's still in China, still super popular, still blended with Confucianism, still popular in other East and Southeast countries, like Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Japan, Korea, and of course China. All right. Keeping on with the theme of syncretism, understand that Christianity also becomes syncretic when it reaches the Americas, right? When it reaches Latin America, we see kind of three new religions or variation of religions form, blending either native or African traditions with Catholicism. So in Mexico, we have, the Virgin of Guadalupe. We have the celebrations of the Day of the Dead. These are more Aztec traditions, but they're going to have a Catholic element behind them. Same thing with Santeria in Cuba and Vodun in Haiti. These are all syncretic religions of Christianity found in Latin America. Here we see some of those images. These would be the Sikhs, right? They're the ones who practice that blended Islam and Hinduism religion. All right, let's keep talking about the arts. Wow, we haven't really talked about the arts, but during this time period, we see a ton of people spending a ton of money on the arts, visual arts, right? This is the time period of the Renaissance, where all those rich Italian people are going to spend and hire, artists like Michelangelo and Da Vinci to make works of art, masterpieces, right? So the Europeans are going to spend a lot of money during the Renaissance. At the same time, give or take a few, decades, we're going to see a lot of artwork in India, right? And in the Ottoman Empire, they do these little paintings called miniature paintings. You kind of see there. Japan, they're going to have woodblock printing. This is one of the most famous woodblock printing about a wave, right? And you can see kind of the Zen, the Shintoism, Buddhism, Taoism influence there, talking about a wave and a mountain and, all about nature stuff. So these people are going to spend money to patronize, right? That means to hire people to make stuff for you, stuff to show off your wealth, to show off your religious devotion, right? Here we see a famous painting by Raphael, one of those Renaissance Ninja Turtles. But we also see, besides the visual arts, we see the performance arts also increase in popularity. Literature, right? As more and more people have access to cheaper books, because again, books are being printed on paper and they're being printed and not handwritten, we see more people can afford an education and afford the luxury of buying literature. We're going to see it in China. We're going to see it in Japan. Of course, we're going to see it in Europe. So there's going to be more poetry. There's going to be a lot more theater as well, performance theaters, right? Like Shakespeare, like the kabuki theater that we see in Japan. And in the past, right, in the post-classical or in the classical era, stuff like theater performances and reading a book, those were pastimes, luxury times, luxury goods of the upper class. Right? Only the richest of the rich could really afford, literature and poetry and theater. Right? But by this time, it becomes more common, it's more widespread. Everyone is adopting it, everyone is enjoying it, right? And again, remember the Protestant and Counter Reformations, they worked really, really hard at educating people for religious reasons, but the side effect is, more literacy. So here we see some of those images, right? So whether we have, the Epic of Sundiata, right, which is the story of the founding of the Mali Empire, right, Don Quixote in Spain, Shakespeare in England. This is the Journey to the West, which is in China. This one sees some rated R looking thing in Japan, right? Literature becomes more and more popular, right? And people become, these writers become more and more famous. And when Sundiata, he was the founder. He wasn't really a writer, but he was the founder of the Mali Empire. He's the grand uncle of Mansa Musa. Remember that guy? Mansa Musa. All right. So that is it for part number 2. Thanks for watching and listening and learning. And again, Marcos, I'm trying to go fast, my friend. Thanks for watching.